So yes, I'm excited to speak with you because it's been a minute since Rainbow Kitten Surprise released a record, like six
Yeah.
years, and there's obviously a lot to unpack. There's a lot that's happening in the world and in your life
hmm
since the last album came out. And this album, Love Hate Music Box, has sort of been in press releases and some interviews I've read that you guys have done, like sort of talked about as like the launch of a new era for the band. Do you feel that way? Explain, and if you do, like in what way is it?
I do feel that way, and I feel like the way it's going over live is like it's a whole different vibe. I mean, I hope people are into it. Definitely it's a lot of fun to perform from like yeah, from our perspective, from the band's perspective. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like I definitely was trying to write this record or a record like this record for a long time, and it just kind of over the last 2 years kind of just bubbled into reality. And yeah, it's like I don't know, every record is different from the last, right? I think that's true with us just musically speaking. And with this record, it's like, yeah, there's 808s, um there's little, there's like drum machines, which we are triggering live from a drum kit,
That's
which is
cool.
really fun, that we have the technology to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that you hear, or just about everything that you hear on the record with the drum, as far as drum machines go, is actually also played on drums. So it's a double, like you hear both sounds to it. And it's just, and we did that because, like, for me, nothing hits like a drum machine, but also you want that live feel too. So, yeah.
Very
So,
cool.
like, yeah.
So it's my understanding that you were suffering from writer's block for a while, and that also some of the stuff that's on this record is stuff that was kind of like in a Google Drive or in some kind of archival situation that you
Yeah, it's a mess.
revisited. Well, I'm
Mhm.
curious about that whole process.
Yeah, so it's like it's a number of things. It's like there's um yeah, there's songs on there that date back to like 2018. Uh, and we're just like little acoustic kind of ditties, and we're doing this thing now where we're like going through demos, and we plan to like release them
Oh,
to give
cool.
some context to the album. We've been doing that with some of our stuff for this record, and I just actually had a meeting yesterday where we were like just going through and looking at all of those archives and stuff and just seeing, shoot, where did it come from, kind of thing. And yeah, so like I don't know. Yeah, it came in waves, like as writing often does for me. It came in like, 20 different iterations of this stuff, and yeah, now it's here, and it's like awesome to have it out of, like out of my system or something.
Out of your system. So what was causing the writer's block? You said your writing comes in waves.
Ooh.
What was causing the block and what unblocked it?
Well, the it's like it's not that I couldn't write, it's that I couldn't write coherently. Like I couldn't finish a song. Like I was so kind of obsessed with just getting, and this kind of delves into something that we'll probably get to a little bit later, but it was just like, yeah, I couldn't finish, and I kept getting like I would like have tracks and stuff where I would just like repeat the same chorus or the same verse over and over, just trying to get the phrasing right and trying to get the tone and like the right words and stuff. And for me, the right words is like so it's like a hybrid of ad lib versus written. So I
Hmm.
usually write it down and then just hit record and see what comes out. Sometimes I'll just be like reading along and I'll be like singing along, and I'm just like, oh, I want to do this instead right here, you know? So, but I kept that. It was kind of an obsessive cycle of just like, no, that's not quite it. It's not quite it. and so I couldn't just finish a freaking song, and that's really what it was. It wasn't that nothing was coming out. It was just that I I like felt self-conscious, or I felt just like it wasn't quite good enough, or it wasn't right for so long, as I was writing these. So
Was that common for you, or was this like an unusual situation?
no, no, I mean, like, I definitely do kind of obsess over what the right words are to start a song, and then what the right words are for the chorus and each part of it. But normally I would have just like been like, okay, well, that's good enough for now, but there was a certain part of me that was like driving me to like be like, that's not good enough.
Mm.
And that's where I got hung up. Yeah, it used to be like I would just pick it up, and whatever kind of came out, I'm like, that's what it is. And there's something to be said for writing like that, and then also for being a little bit more, particular about it. So,
Well, obviously, you mentioned, you sort of alluded like things we'll talk about later, and it did mention in the biomaterials for this record that obviously, you came out as trans in only about 2 years ago, and you were also dealing with some
yeah.
three. Sorry, I thought it was 2022, um, 2021. Okay,
Mhm.
apologies for that.
No,
And also, well, but relatively recently, and definitely since the last
yeah,
record came out, and
yeah,
also, you were dealing with some mental health issues and getting a proper diagnosis for that. So I'm wondering if
yeah.
like getting all that, you said you use the term getting out of your system. Like it sounds like maybe you're in a freer place now, that you had to
Oh,
get past some stuff in order to get to a point where you were in a place to write and create.
yeah. So the journey of writing to where things were coming out coherently is like a couple of things. And it really started 2022. We started digging into this record with Daniel Tashin and Conrad Snyder. And Daniel was super helpful in like the getting me in back into gear of like, nah, dude, just write the song. Like don't you don't have to like, you got a good melody here, let's just double it up, and then you got a verse, and there's a good part here, why don't we just make that the chorus, and why don't we just make this the bridge, kind of like it's not as complicated as you're making it. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, you know what, you're right. Let's just go with it, and let's build a song, and we'll see how we like it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, nothing's set in stone until it is, obviously. And then, but yeah, let's just see how it goes, And so, but there was a lot of like also getting my system regulated for the rest of it to be able to come out. It's like I had a little like writer's spurt, or like, growth happen, in January of 2021, or 2022 rather, and stuff came out, and we got about 8 tracks off of the record in that time. And then things really you know, kind of fell apart
Oh.
that year. And so I had to go on this whole wellness journey of getting myself right so that I could come back and do it for real again. Yeah, for sure.
What did that wellness journey entail?
It the treatment, frankly, a lot of therapy, a lot of like life coaching, just a lot of resources, all hands on deck kind of thing. I mean, like, we tried to do a show in May in Orlando, and I mean, to be honest, I was like, I went, I had a total mental breakdown. I mean, we call it psychosis when you're seeing things, and I was actively seeing things that weren't there.
Oh,
And
wow.
this was during sound check before the show. And I asked my stage manager, I was like, okay, I have this little screen on this keyboard, and all the things are moving and changing colors. Is that actually for real? And he's like, no. I was like, we got a problem.
Oh, no.
We got a problem. So it just kind of continued to spiral throughout the day. And I was just like, I can't do this show. I mean, I wasn't actually even in a position to say I can't do it. I was just like, I was melted. I was crying, and just being like, I can't trust anything. I can't trust my reality because it's not, because things are happening that aren't, and so that was when we really pulled the plug on stuff, and it's like this person needs help, like this person needs like stuff to get them right and regulated and ready to go. We cannot continue like this, which is a fair assessment. And that was, my band really was the one that made that call,
Sounds
you
like they were
know.
supportive of you, that, it sounds like they
I
had your
mean,
back.
well, when you see somebody like that, that's struggling like to manage reality in such a way, I mean, yeah, they were very concerned. They were very concerned and just like we can't put any additional pressure on this person to continue to perform or write or do anything until this gets resolved because that's a scary thing. I mean, it's scary for everybody.
But getting it resolved, it's like, I understand. And, again, first of all, correct me if I get anything wrong, but also like, let me
Mhm.
know if I'm asking anything you don't want to talk about or anything. Um,
Okay.
if I'm going in places you don't want to go. But,
Yeah.
you were diagnosed bipolar, but
Mhm.
I'm getting the impression that it took a while for you to get a proper diagnosis. So like, what was
It,
that like? Probably
it
was a puzzle piece that fell in once you got that.
It did. I just thought, "Hey, I'm just gonna have to live my life like this, and I guess this is my normal." Because my symptoms for the bipolar and stuff didn't really kick in until I was, in, like, my late like, 29 or 30,
Oh, wow.
for me, or whatever, and, it was, like, post-pandemic really stuff started or right at the end of 2020 is when things started to get kinda crazy for me, just like my reality and seeing things and that kind of thing. This May show in Orlando and what happened there and what happened post is why I got a diagnosis in the first place. Because I think people suspected that there was, but they didn't have proof for sure. And I kind of downplayed my symptoms because I just believed I was like, nobody's gonna believe me or something. Nobody's gonna take because I had said it before, and people have been like, "Oh, you're bipolar," but they hadn't medicated me for it. And so it was just kind of like, I don't know, I guess this is my life. So,
Mhm.
but it was that Orlando show and then getting back, and I ended up, that's when I, was still full on, psychosis or whatever. And, actively seeing things is what I mean, or like believing in false realities or, like things, thinking that things were trying to communicate with me, aliens or spirits or whatever, you know. Um,
Wow.
which, by the way, I'm not gonna say that that stuff isn't true for those people who experience that, but there's a limit.
Yeah.
There's a line, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's like I'm very open to spiritual realities, but, like, when they start controlling your life versus what, the rest of reality is, then you might have a problem or might, like, things can get hairy. So, but yeah, I ended up in what I call a grippy socks facility. The kind where they cut the cords on your pants and, to take off all your shoelaces and that don't give you anything that'll, you have to shave with somebody watching you and that kind of thing, like a inpatient facility. And that's where I got diagnosed and treated, you know, and the doctor, Dr. Chen, he just like, shouts out, he was just like, "Yeah, I saw you. I diagnosed you in 30 seconds." He's like,
Wow.
"I knew what was going on. I just knew it. And then they put me on meds for it. First, they like gave me stuff to calm me down and I slept for like 3 days. And then they gave me this other stuff and I won't, go there, but
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, they had me on meds for 2 days. And I was like, "Do not take me off of this. This is so much easier. This is
Wow.
making life so much simpler for me." And that's like where it kicked into gear. That's where we started, and it was like, "Heck yeah, like let's go." We got on this right cocktail or whatever, and then came out of that facility after I don't know. I was probably in there for somewhere in between 11 to 14 days. Couldn't tell you exactly, but
Hmm.
it might have been actually 10, but, like, either way. So, like they just let me simmer a little bit on that stuff and just saw how much better I was getting, and everybody saw it. And to the point where by the time that I was getting ready to leave, I was helping, or like I was like talking folks through it for people who were like experiencing some of my symptoms, coming in. I was just like, hey, I see I'm losing you. What's going on? What's good? Talk to me. Like, what are they
Wow.
saying? You know? And that kind of thing. And I felt like, I don't know, in a position to do that or something. Like I felt like I just was. And I had never been there before because I was too, bogged down by all of my crap.
It's amazing, first of all, that it took a while for you to get diagnosed, but that once you were,
Yeah.
the change was so almost overnight. Like,
Yeah, and that's not everybody's story, and I wish it was. And I
yeah.
wish I wish meds were that simple, or diagnosis was that simple for everybody. But, for me it just worked like a charm, and I'm just so grateful every day of my life for that.
And I'm
Um,
really, and I'm happy for you that,
thank you.
congratulations. There's this fallacy, maybe it's not a fallacy for everybody, but there's a fallacy that like a lot of people make their best art when they are in a dark place, or that mental illness can beget, or drug taking, by drug taking, I mean like narcotic taking, can like beget good
Sure.
art. But I don't know if I mean, I would love your thoughts on it. I don't know. I think it's a fallacy for a lot of people that that's like the best art
I
comes from
think
that.
I talked about this with somebody in another actually interview recently, like because she was just kind of like, I got friends and stuff who are like this, and I who struggle with mental health and self-medicate, I think is a good term for that, because it's just kind of like, for me, I just automatically assume, and I assume, especially for artists and stuff, and like, I don't know, people with mental health struggles, like I have struggled with, um, that they are numbing something. And so I'll tell you frankly, I can't speak to whether or not it creates art, but I can tell you that I was self-medicating we talked about in 2022 in January, that first wave of like 8 songs or whatever. I was self-medicating for that, and I was convinced at the time, because I started delving into things that I hadn't delved in a long time. And I was just like, "Oh, this is helping," because it kind of coincided with, "Oh, all this stuff coming out. Like, all this stuff is just happening. Like, look at this. Can you argue that this is helping?" And probably folks could have argued that whether it was or not. I mean, my producer was straight up. He's like, "Honestly, Ella is, yeah, she's like coming out with this shit, but also it's kind of like she's getting less and less productive the more it seems like she's doing stuff." You know what I'm saying? And and he sorry,
No,
I lost you.
no
I
worries.
lost you for a second.
You're back. You're back.
He was just like straight up. He's like, "Hey, like, I'm noticing that this is like escalating. I'm just gonna tell you, your voice is I'm hearing it in your voice. Like, you
Mm,
need to watch where you're like, you know, like where you're putting shit or whatever." I mean, just real. He was just like, "Hey, you gotta watch it. Quit playing with that." Um, and he was getting more and more frustrated because I was like, because it was like, because stuff was coming out, but at the same time it was escalating,
hmm.
and he could just tell. He was like, "It's making you not as good. It's making you not as good." And I'm like, "But I need it though. I need it though. It's clear that I need it because nothing had come out for years before this, and now we're making tracks that we love, and it's just kind of like, and he's, was on his own kind of sober journey. It was just like, I don't know if you do, man. I don't know if you need it, but whatever." And it got to the point where he was ready to quit the project because of it. It's like he's like, "I love doing this and I love what we're getting, but I don't know if I can stay around this anymore." And that was we kind of wrapped on some sessions, and those were the last sessions we had for almost, until like August or something, because then all the treatment stuff happened. You know, we were supposed to do May, but that's when things fell apart, in Orlando. I was just like, I don't know. So whether or not it creates art, do I believe that drugs or mental illness is responsible for the creation of anything that you or I or anybody else loves to listen to and experience? Frick no. Hell no. I absolutely not. I don't know why I'm not cussing like we're on the radio or
You
something,
you
but
can cuss if you want, whatever, however, speak freely.
I want my mom to be able to watch
Okay.
this.
But a
Okay.
lot of people think I hear a lot of lightness and joy on this record, as well as darkness, of course. But a lot of
Mhm.
people think like, oh, when that person got sober or got happy, got settled their life, got married or whatever, their music started to not be as good. We liked Aerosmith when they were doing heroin, or I don't know, whatever, things like
Yeah,
that.
no, that's a darkness. And to me, I'd be like, if that was like 90 percentile of people came to me and would just like, you like the darkness, I would be like, oh, I can write the darkness. I was just trying to write the light. I was trying to write like, I mean, that's just what came out naturally. But I'm like, oh, there's still darkness on it. Like we all experience that. We all feel that. And so for me, it's just kind of like, I don't know. But that being said, no, I mean, like, could I write something that sounded more like, I don't know. I don't want to, though. I don't
Yeah,
want to. I don't want to dig there anymore. And if it comes out naturally, then that's fine. But like, I just know it's whatever the price is that you pay to get that kind of material, it's not worth it.
that's a really good
It's
way of
not
putting
worth
it.
it. Way too many people have died at 27. We should know better. It's not worth it. Okay. Like, I just don't believe that. I don't believe that. And yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I can still go to those places, but they don't haunt me like they used to, and they don't hurt me like they used to. And I just that being said, I don't judge anybody who self-medicates, hon. Like for real, people have got if you are doing that, then there's pain that's unaddressed and that's unavoidable, and that's just like you're figuring out how to make it day to day.
Hmm.
I like even when people throw around the word like addict or addiction or whatever, I'm just like they're trying to numb something. You know what I'm saying? I just have so much compassion for that. But do I believe it makes you a better artist? I don't.
Yeah, I think that was all very well said, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you saying all that.
Mhm.
So as as I mentioned, you also came out as trans since
Mhm.
the last record, and I wonder how that at all affected the making of this record lyrically. I also have read that you were concerned that it would maybe change your voice, since we're talking about your voice, that you were a little concerned. I read that, so correct me if I'm wrong. That your
No,
vocals, I mean.
yeah, well, no. So, um, estrogen or like HRT, estrogen does not affect the
Okay.
voice. Testosterone does.
Okay.
It lowers it. And
Uh-huh.
for a while, you kind of go through that puberty thing of like it cracking,
Uh,
but estrogen does not. And the only thing that would affect my voice would be like surgery. There's surgery to make your voice basically a higher register somewhat,
oh, okay. Okay.
and sound more like feminine or whatever. But I always knew that that was probably off the table for me because it would just literally mean that there would be certain songs in the Arcast catalog that I couldn't sing anymore.
Mhm.
Um, Plus the just riskiness of the procedure, like I don't know how risky it is, but it's just kind of like this is my life
Right.
or part of my life and definitely my career and stuff. So I just like, yeah, it is what it is.
Mhm.
But no, I think where with the voice, it was more like when I became open about being trans, and I like that a little bit better than came out. But
Sorry.
I know, no, it's the same thing. It's just like I
I'm
have
I'm
been
I'm
a trans woman my whole life, and then I figured out how to express that. You know what I'm saying?
I do,
And
and
that's
I'll
what,
use
yeah,
that language from now on.
where, yeah, that's like I don't know. I just talked to some people about it. We're always trying to figure out better ways to say things, right?
Mhm.
like all of
Language
this
just
stuff.
keeps evolving. I mean,
Mhm.
people weren't talking about pronouns 10 years ago, and now we
People
are.
weren't talking about pronouns and yeah, like and like AMAB, AFAB, like assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth. It's
Hmm.
just a good way to talk about stuff because it's just kind of like we're just trying to get as because it can be a delicate thing, for especially for some folks, it's like the more years you spend out in the open, the more I feel like you get hardened to certain things. And then, like and I wish it didn't have to be that way, but like I don't know. I just think of like people who are first out in the open as trans, it's just kind of like you always need support and you always need people to affirm that. Well, and you may or may not get that. And I wish everybody got as much love and support as I have gotten because it just makes me feel so good. You know what I mean? It's just
Awesome.
cool. Um, but yeah, I feel like that was a tangent and now I have no idea what we were talking about.
No, it was a good one. And again, correct me if I use wrong
Mhm.
language, but
Great.
you became open about
Yeah.
being trans since the last record came out, and sort of during the making of this record or right before it.
Mhm.
Like it
Oh,
was
voice.
but also
Yeah.
just how it might have affected just in the record in general, like what you were writing
Yeah.
about, what
So
perspective you were writing from.
So I'll start with because the voice thing, and somebody like I did an interview on NPR, and Julie, the person who's doing the interview, just like nailed it. She's like, I hear you kind of like playing around with different, not voices, but like different parts of your register, almost like you're trying to push the limits of
Mm,
what you can do and trying to find what your voice is now, being an openly trans person.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is exactly it. That is exactly it. When I first got out in the open, I was just kind of like, well, what my voice is like, there's a part of me that hates hearing it.
Oh.
And then there's a part of me that loves my voice and is very happy that it is mine, like, and the more I've gone on, the more kind of comfortable I become with it. I'm like, nah, this is like, this like I like how I talk. I like how I sound. There's sometimes when it comes on a record or it comes out the speakers on a demo and I'm just like, "Whoa, who's that?" Because in my head it's different than what it comes out. But I'm just kind of like, it's okay. It's okay. Like I can dig it. I can get down with, like this lower thing or, like this. And so, but like as far as like transness and the record and the writing, I do think that it like made for I think I was a tortured soul before being openly trans. Like, I think I was really, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things from like sexuality to um like how I present to all of this stuff that was like almost like before that I was like people pleasing, and I think I was doing that to some degree in the music and with my voice.
Hmm.
I was like, ooh, they want to hear this baritone. They want to hear this, which I'm not. I'm a tenor, but like I do have like a couple of notes down there. Um, they want to hear this, like, uh, yeah, they want to hear this more mask thing. And now I don't really care. I'm like, no, how I want to sing is how I'm gonna sing. And I'm gonna, like I'm not people pleasing anymore in my music, or I try not to in my life because it can get a little toxic, especially if that's not what you really want to be doing and you just felt for some reason some childhood thing has you put in this position and now, you want to make other people happy instead of making yourself happy first, you know. Not that it's anything bad with making people happy, but as long as that's making you happy too.
Well, you mentioned that
So.
your fans' reaction to your transition, or at least your transition in the public sphere, the announcement you
Mhm.
made on Instagram and stuff. It's been
Mhm.
really, from what I can understand, very positive.
Lot of love, yeah. A lot of love. Yeah.
What
They
about
really Mm.
Oh, I was just gonna ask about your, it sounds like you have very supportive bandmates too. Was there any
Mhm.
discussion about how this was going to be announced to the fans?
No, I mean, I, I was open with them about it. I guess in 2021 we got together to do the recording sessions for what became we got workout out of that, and we got together, and I basically like walk in, I had, you know, some makeup on, and I was dressed more femme and stuff, and I was just like, "Hey guys, I'm Ella now." And they were like, "Ella, cool. What are we doing today?"
Wow.
And so it was just like it was cool. No
Were they
problem.
were they surprised? Because it sounds like so nonchalant that maybe they
It
kind of
was so
knew, they kind of already
nonchalant.
knew. Oh, that's
It
cool.
was so nonchalant. It's like when I came out, at the time, what I thought was gay, or like, you know, uh they were very nonchalant with that as well. But this, I was just kind of like, I was so kind of nervous and stuff. And they're just like, that's great. So happy for you. All right. So what are we working on?
Nice.
And that's kind of almost the reaction the fans gave as well. It's just like, oh, cool. Awesome. We love that you're happy. So yeah, what's up? And so with the Instagram post, I think that came we the reason we waited to do it at all was like so that I could get some stuff sorted personally, like with hair and stuff, and like just make sure that I was looking how I would want to look in the
Mhm.
public eye and stuff. And so my management team and stuff was very sensitive to that. They're like, hey, let's make sure you are good to go with this before we share this. Let's do a photo shoot just to make sure you look good, and everybody, and to make sure everybody looks good for this. But you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, yeah, like let's just make sure that this is what you want, not what you want, but like how you want it to be.
Right.
And then what the right wording is, and that, all that. So
Interesting.
yeah.
A lot of fans, maybe in hindsight now, they think that the video you did like 5 or 6 years ago for Hyde was maybe sort of dropping some clues about this, about your truth, because it had people like, well, more like drag queens, but like coming out to their
Yeah.
families and things like that.
Yeah, there were some people coming out as well. And yeah, I mean, maybe I feel like I've been dropping little hints my whole life.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? Like I feel like I don't know, like when I was in college, I asked the guys, it was, whatever. Like I had an Appalachian Mom shirt, if that tells you anything. They got it for me for my birthday. And I liked being called mom, with big old beard and all of that. You know what I mean? But it really made me happy. And I liked cooking for them. And not that that has anything to do with being a woman. I know plenty of women who and men who, cook or whatever. But
Mhm.
at the time, it was just like, I don't know. It was for me, the joy of cooking, I think, came from my mother. She is very much a provider, likes having food around the house, likes feeding people, and baking for folks, and is always sending people cookies and stuff. And I'm like the sibling that does that stuff with my mom, that bakes with my mom. She taught me to cook. She taught, and that kind of thing. So it's just kind of like the first thing when it like before it was super open about, being trans, those were the things rolling in my head. Like, isn't it? It's kind of coincidence that I do things that I don't know, maybe are more domestic. And I'm like, I know that all that's changing, and that's great. That's great that it is. And there's, like my brother's, kind of, I mean, he works too, but he's more of the stay-at-home dad type, kind of thing. And my sister-in-law's out there killing it kind of thing. And like, I don't know, like but there's a small part of me, and I talk about this with trans people, that there's just like I feel like inside of trans, like non-binary, gender fluid, all of this, like like gender identity stuff. And maybe it's in all of us. I don't know, but I really only talk about it with trans people. And maybe I should, like open the dialogue generally. But it's just kind of like I feel like there's almost this container of hyper masculinity and hyper femininity is what I call it. And you got to kind of like it's like a tank, like you have to like open it and let some air out every once in a while, and it's just like, oh my god, I love, like chick flicks, or I love, like I don't it's you know what I mean,
Hmm.
like it's a thing of just kind of like, yeah, like, and once you air it out, it kind of normalizes your system. And it's just kind of like, oh, that's why I was so attracted to, like this as a kid, or that, like that's why, or that's what, like, I don't know. Like now, like when I was first becoming open, like if I'm honest, the idea of like, oh, a man holding the door for me just because he like perceives me like presenting as a woman, or not as a woman, but as like femme,
Hmm.
like that's hot to me. And now I'm just kind of like, all right, a little bit, but there are moments where I'm just kind of like, oh, that does feel nice. You know what I mean? Like almost like the old school thing. And I know we're moving away from all that stuff a little bit,
A little
but
bit.
there's still, yeah, there's still some 1950s in me. And 1950s for me would have been a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a lot of,
So
yeah.
I don't
Anyone,
romanticize.
no,
Yeah.
anyone
Well,
who
I mean,
says,
for
oh,
women
that
in
was such,
general, but
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyone who says the 50s were such a great time, I'm like, well, for some people,
well, about that.
for
You know
some
what I
people.
mean? But I don't know, aesthetic wise and stuff, there's still some cool stuff, but like, I just feel like we're in such an amazing time where we have this back catalog of what all of history has been, and we get to pick and choose the moments that we want to take from them. We don't want the whole thing. Just trust. You know what I mean? Like for like people of color, and for like people who don't fit the gender binary, like, and for women, and for there's a lot of people who didn't have such a great time. You know what I
Well,
mean? But we get to pick and choose that stuff,
hopefully, because
in terms of,
there are some people who want to go back to the 50s and all the
ah,
bad
we
ways.
won't even we
So,
won't even talk about them, because
yeah,
they're times are changing, and if you think that they're not, wait, just
good.
you watch. You know what I'm
I,
saying?
I'd love to ask you about the song on the album Best Man, because obviously the title alone, but I read somewhere
Mhm.
that like Taylor Swift's The Man sort of inspired that partially.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, it was just kind of like that. That's interesting. I didn't even know if I had talked about that. Yeah, like, um, so I'm trying to think when all this stuff, you know, um, hold on, because I'm like, I don't, yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, like, um, because I went and saw her on the Eras tour in May, and I was like a fan of Midnight's, but I didn't really know back catalog stuff until I started digging in for that,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and that's such a moment for that show. I mean, it's filled with moments, obviously, and anyone who's seen it, it's like, wow. But yeah, I went and saw her, and it's such a moment, and she's like, "You're making me feel so powerful," kind of thing. And I was just like, I just loved it, and I loved the jacket that she wears, and like, I loved, I don't know, I was like, man, like, I just found myself thinking that, like, I'm like, I don't know if I get to take part in this. I'm gonna be honest with you, because there was a time when people would have called me the man, and I hope they never do again. But you know, but that being said, I was just like, yeah, I resonate with this attitude of like, yeah, like I'm out here, I'm doing it despite folks who might want to break me down, or I don't know. Like it was just I just found it inspiring. And so the idea of like, it's just words that sounded good and came out like, you better put your best man on it. Like really, I feel like you better put Taylor on it. You know, I might as well have said, you know what I mean? Like, you better put the man on it. And right now, Taylor is the man, and no one could question that,
It's pretty
you know?
interesting that you say there was a time when, yeah, you would have been called the man because, you
Yeah,
presented as a, for people who didn't know any better, like as a
yeah.
straight white male, whatever.
Ooh,
Or
white up for debate, but yeah, yeah, I hear you.
I'm talking about how you would be perceived by people
Oh,
who
yeah.
were looking at you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you've kind of experienced two different sides of society. Yeah, again, forgive me if I'm wording anything in an awkward way, but you've seen what it's like to be the man, and you've also seen
Mhm.
what it's like to live as a trans woman. It's a kind of an interesting perspective, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, well, I don't know. Yeah, like, I guess I didn't come out, as open. I'm just
Hmm.
thinking back. I'm just like honest, like I'm just like the whole, not to make it about complexion or anything, but that is like, just when you said this is how you would be perceived, I'm like, well, not everybody perceives me that way. You
Okay.
know, I am like, I am mixed. I am
Hmm.
like Latina,
Hmm.
but like also I do hear you that there are some people who like miss that part. And I don't think that that's a huge deal or anything. I'm just like, for the record,
Right.
I'm like, I don't know I'm like, for the record, my dad's Dominican. But like, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, I'm working through these feelings as I'm talking to you about it.
I
So I'm
appreciate
just
that.
like, yeah. So it's just one of those things. Like, some people see it immediately. They're like, oh shit, are you Latina? And some people are like, you know, but I don't know. It's just the amount of times in my life that I'm just kind of like, that I've tried to pass
Mm.
as white, and people would be like, where you really from? No, I mean before that. And then
Wow.
I say Dominican, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Like in rural America, honey, probably not, probably not white. But no, I hear you. Like, and then like being perceived, and that's a whole other thing, because I just get these waves of like, again, just like trying to be like totally honest and transparent. I just have this image of me with my shirt off, with a beard, and I'm just like, holy that I'm just like, I didn't, until this moment, maybe, I'm like, I didn't know how hard that was.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't upset you or anything.
No, no, I'm glad if you're not, if you're not making me dig, then you're not doing your job, and that's how I feel. That's how
Okay.
I feel. You
Okay.
know
I
what I
appreciate
mean?
it.
So,
Hmm.
and I'm just like, because I just want to give you the truth of what I'm feeling and thinking in the moment, because that's just how I believe people ought to communicate. And there's room for tact, and there's room for, I don't think censorship ever, but there's room for figuring out how you want to say something, but I still think you should say it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, so all this stuff is like, yeah, like, I don't even remember the question exactly, but I remember it was just like, this is how you would have been perceived. And I'm
Right.
just kind
Right.
of like, oh my, I'm just so grateful that I'm not perceived that way
Isn't Daddy Yankee a
anymore.
little bit about how, isn't that a reference to how people would perceive your skin color or something? The
Yeah,
song
no, I mean,
Daddy,
because
the
that's what
song
they
Daddy
call,
Yankee.
yeah, because I spent 7 years in the Dominican Republic as I was growing up, from like
Okay.
8 to 15. And or almost 15, and that's a reference to, yeah, what people would call me Daddy Yankee, because like I had I had that look, that rock, I was rocking the broad brimmed hat and the bandana and stuff, and people were just like, Daddy Yankee at that time. That was what was popping. So at least in the Dominican, that's what was popping. People would play it, on these loud ass speakers out in public, and everywhere you went, it was gasolina, and so yeah, yeah, that's what they called me,
Wow.
because I was lighter than the rest of the kids, that's for sure.
Right. Right. That's
Mhm.
I thought that was a reference to that. I'd love to ask about the
Mhm.
song Overtime, that because you did that with another awesome woman from the country pop world, Casey Musgraves,
Yeah.
who's a great ally.
Yeah, no, like Casey, I mean, we just met happenstance. She was walking out of Conrad's when we were walking in. He was just finishing up cutting. I think I don't remember exactly what I think maybe Maddie Diaz or but either way, she just walked out. She's like, "Oh my God, Ella, let me give you a hug." And I was just like, "I think you're Casey." I'm like, I don't know, but like, because I really hadn't dug into I okay, yeah, no, I mean, like, Conrad had played me some of her stuff before, and so I dug into it then, but, like, she didn't have a picture on like, her now album, Deeper Well or what, it has a picture
Mhm.
on it, and, but I was just like, "You've gotta be Casey Musgraves because you're absolutely just gorgeous and insane." When you meet somebody that's just that caliber of artist, they got a glow about them, I think, and I was just like, "You glow." You definitely glow. So, and then she was just like, "Yeah, let's like do something together sometime. Like, let's make something." And I was just like, I mean, you can't be serious, but if you are, I've got just the thing, kind of thing. Because yeah, like I had been playing around with overtime for a couple of days at that point, and I was just like sitting down and like I remember singing it for my roommate, and my roommate just being like and just being like, "Yo, you think Casey would ever, like, dig this or be good on this and stuff?" And they're like, "Actually, yeah, that's a vibe."
Wow.
So, I talked to Daniel and Conrad about it, and they obviously work with Casey, and so it was just like, "Yeah, let's pitch it. Let's see if she bites, or if she takes us up on it." So,
Amazing.
yeah, that's kind of the
I
story.
when you were talking about sort of envisioning yourself before pre-transition and it kind of hitting you hard, um, does it bother you that, photos of the band, videos of the band, music before you were open, like are out there in the universe? Does that, obviously there's a big digital footprint of your old life
Oh,
out there.
I don't see it very much though. I'll just
Okay.
be honest, and maybe it's just because I don't go and I don't look up those videos or stuff. But I was actually in. It was interesting because I was, just to be frank, in treatment.
Mm.
And people, there's not a whole lot to do in treatment. So there's like a couple TVs around, so everybody kind of passes around the remote and usually just plays YouTube videos or music on these TVs, and that's just kind of like how you pass the time. And we were just, and some folks, I was in treatment and people were playing Rainbow Kitten Surprise,
Oh, wow.
and nobody recognized me for like, I think I was in there for a week, and nobody put two and two together because I didn't have, because maybe, and it was just like, this can't be the same person. Or why would that be happening? But it finally came out. I was just like, I got just sick and tired. I was not sick and tired of it, but it was just kind of like, I'm like, I'm about to drop a bomb. So they're playing it, and I'm like, y'all know this is my band, right? And they're just like, wait, what? I'm just like, you see, that's me. I like, come on, you know, that's me. And they're like, whoa, wait. And so it takes about a day and it just spreads through the whole facility. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's me. And I ended up at some point singing karaoke to my own music for these people.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's
It's just kind
amazing.
of like, this is wild. This is
So
wild.
it seems like you're in a really good place now with both professionally and artistically and also
Mhm.
personally. Obviously it's a journey, but it seems like you're in a good spot in the journey. What's next for you and for the band?
I mean, well, we got tour in the fall, and that's gonna be awesome. Hopefully, no, I'm not hopefully. I mean, like May was so fantastically fun and it felt so good to play and we just enjoyed it so much. And cannot wait to do that again. Like for me, as soon as I finish a record, as soon as it hits the public ear, I'm on to the next thing I'm writing. So, we're right now we're trying to get a spot together where we can all kind of write together and have, just everything set up and ready to go to where if people inspiration hits anybody, we can just link up and just start doing the thing. we haven't had that in years, like a collective house or something. So we're definitely looking into that and stuff. And yeah, so basically we're gonna keep making music, we're gonna keep playing music and like I mean, what else do you do if you I mean we're a band, so
So it's not gonna be another 6 years before we get a full
oh, I
album.
certainly hope not. But if it takes 6 years, I promise it'll be worth it.
Well
That's I
said.
promise you.
Everything
Mhm.
was well said in this interview. I really want to
Oh,
thank you
thank
for
you.
being so eloquent and so honest and just being so open.
Yeah, I love your questions. I thought we got right to the heart of it, you know what I mean?
Awesome.
So,
That makes me feel good. Thank you for saying that. Just thank you for your
mhm.
time and everything.
Yeah, yeah, this was so good.
All right.
So,
God
okay,
bless.
awesome.